just looking at the latest news stories on Tropical Storm Florence. One of them is Tropical Storm Florence prompts state of emergency in North Carolina. And that's because the latest computer models are showing a fairly strong hurricane Florence hitting North Carolina in about 6 days from now. Here's something kind of interesting. There's a place in South Carolina called Florence. It's a little bit inland, and it's not too far south of North Carolina. And this is the place, well, it's actually not Florence, but a place that's on the coast, Myrtle Beach, in South Carolina, is the place that I connected to the novel Red Rain by R.L. Stine, where there is a hurricane named Ernesto that comes in and wipes out the island. And the island has identical twins. Well, there's identical twins in the story, Daniel and Samuel, who live on this little island just off South Carolina. Now, I noticed the name Ernesto was on the hurricane name list this year, the one before Florence. And Ernesto brought some wind and rain and whatnot to Britain. Florence has already been a really unusual storm, very unusual. And it's defied all the computer models and done stuff that was eye-popping. Florence. There's a band, a musician, an artist named Florence and the Machine, who is from Britain. And the twins in Red Rain by R.L. Stine are described as blonde, blue-eyed, and angelic. And 12-year-old identical twins on a little island just off South Carolina. Today I looked at maps, and I did that for a reason. I want to show you a couple of things this is kind of weird. Okay, so let's go to, first of all, Florence and the Machine. The first thing I thought is Florence and the Machine. I heard that a hurricane is like a self-sustaining machine. That was a comment made by a meteorologist on the Australian Sky News weather channel, that a hurricane is a self-sustaining machine. In theory, they could go on forever. So Florence and the Machine, I thought, kind of is descriptive of a hurricane, Florence. And so I started thinking about that. And then I started thinking, well, I wonder, are there any songs by Florence and the Machine? Because I knew a couple of her songs. The one I was familiar with already was Shake It Out and Never Let Me Go. I knew those songs. I didn't know too many others. I knew Spectrum when I listened to it. I thought What the Water Gave Me. Yeah, that's exactly what a hurricane could sing. Is what the water gave me. Is energy. Heat energy from the water is that's the fuel for a hurricane, is the heat energy from the ocean. So I thought, I wonder, are there any songs by Florence that relate to hurricanes? And when I saw that, I thought, well, that sort of relates to hurricanes, just the title by itself. Then I looked further afield, and I came across a song called Hurricane Drunk. So, well, there we go. A song that truly is about a hurricane. And there's the lyrics. I'm in the grip of a hurricane. I'm going to blow myself away. So it's, yeah, Florence isn't afraid to take on some of the heavier, darker issues in life. And that's one of the many reasons why I think she's a great artist. She's brave. She's powerful singer, beautiful voice, and she is honest. I think honesty is the thing that can enable some artists to reflect. You know, they say great artists reflect life, but I think it's also true that life reflects great artists. And there's another song, St. Jude, that truly reminds me of the novel Red Rain by R.L. Stine. the part that really reminds me of the novel, well, the whole song is, if you watch the music clip video, it becomes even more compelling. And I was on the island and you were there too, but somehow through the storm I couldn't get to you. St. Jude, somehow she knew. And she came to give her blessing while causing devastation, and I couldn't keep my mouth shut. I just had to mention grabbing your attention. St. Jude. That really reminded me of Red Rain. And then there's more songs by Florence that actually the first one that reminded me of like Hurricane. Florence and the Machine. And the other thing is Florence is touring at the moment. So a UK artist touring the USA right now, coming to Australia soon, which is where I am. And there's another song, Howl. And now it's a werewolf song. But what do hurricanes do? Obviously they howl. Screaming in the dark, I howl when we're apart. So it's a song about werewolves. There's not that many songs about werewolves, but this is a good one. And so, yeah, I just thought, okay, so there's quite a few of her songs that do relate to hurricanes. And her name's on the list. So I thought, kind of makes sense. And 2018. Florence and the Machine of 2018. In more ways than one, maybe. Because the forecast is looking pretty, yes, pretty resembling some of these lyrics. I'm going to blow myself away. Well, if only. If only the hurricane would blow itself away. But they don't tend to do that. Well, they can do that, but this one doesn't look like it's going to do that. South Carolina, Myrtle Beach is not that far south of the North Carolina border. This is where it gets weird. Go back to this, one of these things. Which one is it? It's this one. The album, Ceremonials. It's got the song, the one that really reminded me, to be honest, of the novel Red Rain was this. Because this has got boys, it's got the Trinity Boys Choir in New York. And it was the Trinity Boys Choir who, because they're aged around 12, the boys in the video clip, the Trinity Boys Choir, reminded me of Red Rain by R.L. Stine. And if we have a look at the music video for No Light, No Light, I've been mentioning how on the watch in the video, the time is 6:15. So I was thinking, wouldn't it be weird if the hurricane made landfall at the time that's on the watch in the video clip, given that this is the music video that got me thinking about Red Rain and the twins in the first place? Well, yes, I think that would be very strange. But, let's come back to this list. Today I discovered something a whole lot weirder. Seven Devils is a song on this album. This goes back to 2011. 2011, I'm pretty sure 2011 was the year that Hurricane Sandy hit the US. It may have been 2012. But, Sandy was around this time. And this song, Seven Devils, could relate to Mary Magdalene. It's, check this out, this is interesting. Here's a map of North Carolina. There is a place in North Carolina called Seven Devils. It's a small town. It's up here in the inland. Seven Devils, North Carolina in the USA. It's in line with, guess what? Florence and Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Florence, South Carolina. Wilmington in North Carolina is just up here, then Jacksonville is just up here. Myrtle Beach, Florence, and Seven Devils. Florence and the Machine, the artist, the album Ceremonials, the album that's got the song No Light, No Light, the music video that got me thinking of Red Rain, which is set on a little island off South Carolina. Seven Devils is on the album as well. Ceremonials. So I was like, okay, that's just weird. But kind of cool. Because I do think it can work both ways. Of course, great artists reflect life in their lyrics, their poems, their stories, novels, songs, whatever they're doing, whatever kind of art they're creating, paintings. But I think life can also reflect great artists. And so, yeah, there's a whole stack of news breaking now about Tropical Storm Florence and what it is forecast to do by the computer models, which is now starting to it's starting to look more likely that Eastern USA is going to suffer a direct hit from this hurricane. And yeah, it does. There's lyrics here that describe it. And she came to give her blessing while causing devastation. You know, these lyrics are not, they're not really referring to an actual hurricane. They're referring to a relationship breaking down, that kind of pain that when, you know, there's a relationship going wrong. Using the hurricane as an analogy. And therein lies the reflection, in reality, of an actual hurricane. So it kind of makes sense to me that Florence and the Machine. A hurricane is a machine. In theory, a hurricane can go on forever. That's what the meteorologist said. It's a self-sustaining machine. Its fuel source is the ocean, and if everything is favorable, hurricanes are actually quite delicate too. They require they can be delicate. Like this one was knocked down from Category 4 hurricane down to a tropical storm because the wind shear got too strong. And so they need the right conditions. They're not like, they can't just exist in any conditions. They need the right conditions. But when the conditions are correct, when they're nice and nourishing, from the storm's point of view, they can become incredibly strong. And Florence, the name Florence means bloom, blossom, like a flower. So what is it now? It's 8:27 in the morning, Saturday, 8th of September 2018 in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Eastern Daylight Time. And that is the same time in Wilmington, North Carolina. Just a little bit further to the north. So yeah, that's the latest. Florence, an increasing danger to the US East Coast. Florence, the artist. Florence and the Machine. Currently touring the US. Ceremonials. 2011 album. North Carolina. Seven Devils. Seven Devils. is on the album, Ceremonials. Right below No Light, No Light, it's the song after No Light, No Light, the one that got me thinking about Red Rain. Seven Devils, North Carolina. Florence, Myrtle Beach. And Wilmington is just to the north of there, in North Carolina. So, what do you think? Get ready for insane climate ambulance chasing headlines. Global warming causing unprecedented Hurricane Florence. Climate change denial is interesting, isn't it? The politicization of science. East Coast nervous about major Hurricane Florence. A pleasant Minnesota weekend. East Coast could be bracing for Hurricane Florence next week. Minnesota. Astronaut captures photos of ominous looking Hurricane Florence from space. Hurricane Florence. NASA model shows size and intensity of storm. Is she going to affect the UK? Probably not. Hurricane Helene might though. Cruise ships are being diverted. Potentially disastrous. And yeah, actually, after all the rain, they've already had a lot of flooding in a lot of parts of the east coast of the US. So a large landfalling hurricane could have much deadlier impacts with flooding potential than usual, because a lot of areas have already seen flooding. And when the ground is already saturated, it makes for a much worse disaster with flooding. Tropical Depression 9 strengthening. Yeah, that's since become Helene, I think. Oh yeah, and another system has formed next to Florence as well, which is weird. Watching Florence. Governor declares state of emergency in North Carolina as Tropical Storm Florence strengthens. Watch out for Florence, forecasters say. Emergency officials keep eyes on Florence. Storm's path still a mystery, though it's becoming increasingly a threat to the east coast of the USA, as you can see. And as you can see, prompt state of emergency declaration. South Carolina emergency operations increases to OPCON 4 as Florence moves over Atlantic. Yeah, so interesting, weird, and a little scary if you live in these places, I'd say. Whether you subscribe to global warming theory or not. I guess if you don't subscribe to global warming theory, you might just blame it on Florence. Might as well, huh? Just blame it on an artist whose lyrics describe the pain that sometimes comes with this life on Earth. But do you turn and ignore it, or do you accept it and deal with it? I guess that's the question. So that's the songs on the album Ceremonials. And that's what I discovered today. Seven Devils. The song after No Light, No Light is a place in North Carolina, because the border is here. Seven Devils is in North Carolina. Florence is in South Carolina. Myrtle Beach in South Carolina. I imagined the little island in Red Rain to be somewhere off, just off Myrtle Beach. But it didn't actually say exactly where it was. Anyway, it's now 8:34 in the morning, Eastern Daylight Time in the US on Saturday, 8th of September. They said about 6 days from now they expect landfall from Florence. So, yeah, guess we'll find out.